How'd you do, I? See you met my faithful handyman. No, not another one. I'll save you. It's what Batman would do. He's just a little brought down, you see, when you knocked. He thought you were the Candyman.
When I was young, I designed a machine to turn ghosts into paintings, and I traveled the world collecting them. That's horrible.
Okay. A quick shot. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that came out wrong. You're not helping. You're not helping your case. You're not making this any better. You realize that.
Oh, it was glamorous, I can tell you. The souls of the dearly departed who couldn't rest, and you just went around and you started turning them into paintings. You're a monster. Well, tonight, I'm going to invite the whole town over for your birthday party. Oh, Grandma, no! So I'd better start getting ready, shouldn't I? Where's my guillotine? Because that one door says, no, you need 2 stars to enter. I figured that was the door to the final boss. And apparently no. But then again, that was a week ago. I was very young and naive then. No!
Excuse me. Coming through. Sorry. Couldn't help it. I'm completely incompetent. Damn, I look good running into those heels. Ow!
Thanks to philosophy, all is forgiven.
Greetings, gentle viewers and listeners, and welcome to today's stream. And, pardon me, boy, is that the road to Great Cthulhu? In the city of slime, where it is night all the time. Bob Hope never went along the road to Great Cthulhu. In the city so deep, where dread Cthulhu sleeps. You'll see an ancient city where the angles are wrong. You'll see the 4th dimension if you're there very long. Come to the conventicle, bring along a pentacle, unless you want to get sucked up by a tentacle. I'm fumbling with controls, trying to manage the very basic, mundane task of starting a video game. There we go. So this is Dagon. H.P. Lovecraft, and as it happens, this is actually a Lovecraft story that I never read, so this is going to be...
Hold on. Having issues with the playback on my device, want to make sure it's not affecting the stream at large.
And speaking of technical stuff, if there's anything with sound, gentle viewers and listeners, please let me know so we can address it. And while the fool works his magic, today's not-for-profit is the Trevor Project. Trevor Project.
I haven't been able to get your stream at all so far. So, I don't even know if we're live.
Oh.
Just says there's a problem with playing playback ID issue every single time, and it's weird because everything else suggests that we're good on YouTube's end and on OBS, so...
do we have any viewers listed currently?
No. Okay, yeah, it was a device issue.
Okay.
We're good.
All right, excellent.
Sorry for the interruption.
Not a problem. Anyway, the Trevor Project acts as a refuge from the maelstrom for members of the LGBTQIA+ community who may be young, they may be in a situation that is either just needing a little bit of backup, or maybe they're even just not in a safe place at all. But regardless, the Trevor Foundation offers services, including if you're in a situation where your folks will like go through your phone or go through your tablet or whatever, that they can erase traces of them having been there. So if you or someone that you know could use the services of the Trevor Foundation, links are in the description. And if you are in a position that you can donate something to their cause, link for that is also in the description, and it would be very appreciated. Among other things, with the suicide hotline having been hampered where it comes to LGBTQIA+, the Trevor Project has been picking up the slack as best they can, and they could really use your support. So, let's see, trivia yields nothing. There's some DLC that we can do later. I guess it's time to start. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. Nice. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. Okay, I'll admit I have mixed feelings about that. As you guys know, one of my favorite forms of game is the sandbox. On the other hand, Professor Layton is awesome, and I really enjoyed the children's living book Stella Luna. So let's just see what happens. I already love the artwork.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. Nice.
The audio is definitely way too quiet.
Okay, cool. Well, that is fine, because the game already has me distinctly intrigued. Okay. Okay, right stick moves around. And I have a little reticule. I can look around myself to an extent. But my character is distinctly facing the way that he is facing. So, do I just press A, I guess? I know this is what it wants me to focus on, but I'm curious as to this other stuff as well. I've read a fair amount of Lovecraft stuff, as well as August Derleth, and of course he and Robert Howard, creator of Conan, Cole, and Solomon Kane were also great friends, and they exchanged a lot of ideas and world building.
And at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Okay, yeah, content warning, everyone. What did I see to prompt this?
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Morphine, it seems, entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865, and World War I, 1914 to 1918. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Yeah, morphine for the longest time was a common ingredient in cough syrup. Okay, and I'll turn down the TV a little bit. There we go. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe. Around 1854, Friedrich, I'm not sure how that's properly pronounced, Saturner, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. So, wow, yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So then, as now, a lot of drug abuse started out as self-medication, and any vets out there want to scream about how this crap still is not properly being addressed? I'm with you. And we can turn off trivia immediately or go back to main menu. Yeah. I like the trivia personally. But yeah, soldier's disease, kind of like calling it shell shock, because they thought that PTSD was actually caused by noise of the explosive shells going off.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
We haven't even hit anything supernatural, and this is already horror.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Okay. Yeah, oh, the animation in this is just gorgeous. Look at that ocean. That is so beautiful. But yeah, referring to the Germans as the Jerrys or the Huns.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
That's an interesting. There's an interesting flag. Hello. Huh. Yeah, during World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans to emphasize their brutality. But the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on 27th January 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns, under their king Attila, made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend, may the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed as a German. At a German. which was a clear breach of laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899, and actually predated that in the Articles of War. I'm probably going to start skipping over a lot of the trivia, as much as I find it fascinating, just because I don't know how much other people will. But yeah, for another excellent reference of what happens when people violated the Articles of War, see also William Shakespeare's Henry V. War is always ugly. The Articles of War were designed to try desperately to minimize how ugly it could get. Sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Visions.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Yeah, no blame. God, so beautiful. Those of you who are just listening to this stream, if you have the opportunity sometime to just give it a watch or play this game yourself, I strongly recommend it. I mean, yeah, you can tell that it's a video game. You can tell this is made out of pixels. But especially the artistry of the water is beautifully done. Which, if you're going to do anything with the Cthulhu mythology, you have to get the water right. Or it will not.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
Yeah, I'll admit, I would not have tried to escape while on ship if it were me, simply because I have minimal to no navigational skills. I would just be making sure that I died in a smaller boat. So, I guess kudos to this guy for having balls of solid rock.
Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Oh, jeez.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Yeah, I have read accounts of people who had to survive on life rafts in the middle of the ocean. It cannot be overstated how dangerous this was. Those people who survived such excursions, it could be months. During that time period, what are you going to eat? How are you going to protect yourself from the elements? If there's an ocean storm, you may just be screwed, because how are you going to get back onto the boat? He has some provisions, and he has oars for all the good that does him. That is his small glimmer of hope.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Let's just take a moment and take this in. The nighttime sky. The brine-soaked mud. The tentacles.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
I dreamed that whole hideous crawl, and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah, apparently this was inspired partially by a short novel and partially by a dream that Lovecraft himself had to endure. Yeah, I'll admit, in these circumstances, I would not know even where to begin moving.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Yeah, right now the boat represents shelter. What greater horror is there than helplessness in a foreign clime?
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
The sky is fairly pocked with stars. As King Henry might say. And of course, environmentally, the nighttime is the best time to travel. But if you have trouble seeing in the dark, it is also the most terrifying.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
There's nothing here but to go on.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
About these things. Terrible remnants are these that surge, forgotten and half submerged, in the almost dry, blackened muck beneath my feet. How is it that such a great land has appeared in the midst of the ocean, to cause so many powerful creatures of the depths to follow it and die?
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
These fragments, are these individual huge slug-like behemoths, or are they the remnants of one gigantic leviathan trapped somehow within the mud?
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
And yes, when there is the option to bring trivia, I will bring it up on the screen. For those who are interested, I will probably not read much, if any, of the trivia going forward. I must pick up my pack and carry on.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Wonder, awe, it is always the fear of the unknown that breaks the mind of the narrator in these stories. Not always. In Smith, things went a little differently. Might even say it was a happy ending. One of the few that Lovecraft ever penned. I wonder if this will be another.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely. The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound. Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background, for one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. distinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Here's an excerpt from The Conservative, where Lovecraft explained his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the Conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is, or can never be, above warfare, until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon, or Dagon, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as their patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and as an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. He's often mistaken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones. The deep ones are a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. And hopefully we will see more of the deep ones as we progress. Ah, yes. And here's the research that he's been doing in the meantime. Understandably obsessed with the truth or fiction of what he has found and experienced. Apparently a gentleman of some means. I've been looking for the elder sign. I haven't seen it yet, but I sometimes have trouble recognizing things when they're in pixels, so that might just be me.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
August Derleth was one of the great contributors to what became the Cthulhu mythos after Lovecraft's death. And for those of you who are interested, there was a screen of information pertaining to that. Lovecraft was kind of in the center of a circle of writers for a time, in fact. For all that he never gained much in the way of either success or notoriety in his life, his writings were appreciated for what they were by a select few. There's nothing more to be learned here, so it seems the time has come for me to go.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Lovecraft's opinion of both alcohol and tobacco was one of condemnation. One sympathizes.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
And so ends the unfortunate tale of Dagon. If you've been enjoying this thus far, and you would like to see and encourage some more Let's Plays, some more active than others, please feel free to leave a like. It really helps the channel. And in the meantime, happy Halloween, everyone.
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries. They have many faces and forms, but what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to...
So, next we have either the little glass bottle or the railway horror. While I sit here enjoying my tea and cookies, chamomile tea, no sweetener, just chamomile. What are anyone's preferences? We have the little glass bottle and we have the railway horror. What would you prefer? Pay no attention to that strange rustling sound from the window. I'm sure it means nothing. Well, if no one has any preferences, I'm going to go with the little glass bottle, I think. The title intrigues me. And again, it's another story that, in real life, I haven't read. Oh, I stand corrected. There's a third, the Eldritch Box. Little glass bottle, railway horror, the Eldritch Box. Little glass bottle it is. Oh, wow. This is a short adaptation of a story by Howard Phillips Lovecraft, written when he was about 7 years old. Those of you who are interested, you can look at his biography, get an idea of his childhood. He was a very frail young man. Didn't attend a lot of public school. Fortunately, his family had an extensive library. I've heard that his mother died in an institution, but I don't know for certain.
Heave to! There's something floating to the leeward. The speaker was a short, stockily built man whose name was William Jones. He was the captain of a small catboat in which he and a party of men were sailing at the time the story opens.
Yeah. My guess is I'm missing a lot just because I'm not recognizing the cues to click on. Those of you who would like to get more into the lore and find possibly some hidden elements in these stories, the main game is currently free on Steam, and the DLCs are very inexpensive. I recommend them highly. In any case, we return to our tale.
Aye, aye, sir, answered John Towers, and the boat was brought to a standstill. Captain Jones reached out his hand for the object, which he now discerned to be a glass bottle. Nothing but a rum flask that the men on the passing boat threw over, he said. But from an impulse of curiosity, he reached out for it. It was a rum flask, and he was about to throw it away when he noticed a piece of paper in it. He pulled it out, and on it read the following. January 1st, 1864. I am John Jones, who writes this letter. My ship is fast sinking with the treasure on board. I am where it is marked on the enclosed chart. Captain Jones turned the sheet over, and the other side was a chart. On the edge were written these words. Dotted lines represent course we took. Towers, said Captain Jones excitedly. Read this. Towers did as he was directed. I think it would pay to go, said Captain Jones. Do you? Just as you say, replied Towers. We'll charter a schooner this very day, said the excited captain. All right, said Towers. So they hired a boat and started off, governed by the dotted lines of the chart.
So, H.P. Lovecraft learned to read at the age of 4. Again, one empathizes. He quickly became interested in exact sciences, especially chemistry. For me, it was biology. As a 9-year-old, he even started publishing his own amateur magazine, The Scientific Gazette, and sometime later, the series The Chemistry. Around 1900, the future master of horror developed an interest in Antarctica and began writing treatises on expeditions to the continent. This undoubtedly influenced one of his famous works, At the Mountains of Madness, written 30 years later. As a 12-year-old, Lovecraft discovered astronomy, which he later considered his most moving experience. Realizing the immensity of the cosmos had a huge impact on his worldview and work, laying the foundations for the cosmic horror genre. Quote, the majesty of the concept of an expanding universe still makes me shudder in a unique manner. A Confession of Unfaith, 1922. Yeah, dude. I get it. I absolutely get it. And as an aside, as Izzy the Fool points out, all profits from the paid DLCs go to victims of the Russian invasion in Ukraine, which is another fine reason to pick up the DLCs, even if there was no other.
In 4 weeks, they reached the place where directed. And the divers went down.
Yeah, it may be worth noting that during the time period where these stories were written, it was generally believed that no life could exist at the bottom of the ocean because the pressures were too vast. So, any time that Lovecraft is writing about these strange, unknown things from the depths, he's writing about the impossibility of life being there the same way that he writes about life existing in the space between stars. Surrounded by shallow ocean, the outline of the ship clearly above, fish circling around in all directions.
And came up with an iron bottle. They found in it the following lines scribbled on a piece of brown paper. December 3rd, 1880. Dear Searcher, excuse me for the practical joke I have played on you. But it serves you right to find nothing for your foolish act. Well, it does, said Captain Jones. Go on. However, I will defray your expenses to and from the place you found your body. I think it will be $250, so that amount you will find in an iron box. I know where you found the bottle because I put this bottle here. And the iron box. And then found a good place to put the second bottle. Hoping the enclosed money will defray your expenses some I close. Anonymous.
For trivia, which I will not read aloud, but feel free to still the image if you wish.
I'd like to kick his head off, said Captain Jones. Here, diver, go and get the $250.
Back under sea. A different location, but there's the iron box.
In a minute, the diver came up bearing an iron box. Inside it was found $250. It defrayed their expenses, but I hardly think that they will ever go to a mysterious place as directed by a mysterious bottle.
Not bad for the age of 7. So I'm thinking the railway horror can be next. This one is not an official Lovecraft story, although it may sound familiar to some of us. It is an excerpt from the writer's letter to his friend Donald Wandry from November 24th, 1927, in which he described one of his dreams, or rather, a nightmare.
My dreams occasionally approached the fantastical in character, though falling somewhat short of coherence. One scene is especially stamped upon my recollection. That of a dank, fetid, reed-choked marsh under a gray autumn sky.
There is the hated sun. Okay, I recognize the sun as a friend to most of you, but it's a begrudging ally at best to me. This fated place. What am I looking for? In letters to his friend, Donald Wandry, Lovecraft described 2 of his dreams. After the writer's death, they were sold to the publisher of the Scientist Snap's Bizarre magazine and published in the form of short stories. The first one, titled The Very Old Folk, tells the story of one of the provinces of the Roman Republic and the mysterious mountain inhabitants performing terrible rituals. The second one was titled The Thing in the Moonlight and was published in January 1941. The publisher added a fabricated beginning and ending to it in which Lovecraft, unable to free himself of the nightmare, mentally contacts a stranger. Other publishers later reprinted the story unaware that some of the text was not authentic. This is the original dream, in its original form, without any additions.
With a rugged cliff of lichen-crusted stone rising to the north.
many of the castaway tools here. Some more recognizable than others.
Impelled by some obscure quest, I ascended a rift, or cleft, in this beetling precipice. Noting as I did so the black mouths of many fearsome burrows extending from both walls into the depths of the stony plateau.
More lore for those who would like to pause and read it.
At several points, the passage was roofed over by the choking of the upper parts of the narrow fissure. These places being exceedingly dark and forbidding the perception of such burrows as may have existed there. In one such dark space, I felt conscious of a singular accession of fright, as if some subtle and bodiless emanation from the abyss were engulfing my spirit. But the blackness was too great for me to perceive the source of my alarm. At length I emerged upon a tableland of moss-grown rock and scanty soil, lit up by a faint moonlight which had replaced the expiring orb of day. Casting my eyes about, I beheld no living object, but was sensible of a very peculiar stirring far below me amongst the whispering rushes of the pestilential swamp I had lately quitted.
One wonders what kind of astrological significance this ancient relic might pose.
After walking for some distance, I encountered the rusty tracks of a street railway and the worm-eaten poles which still held the limp and sagging trolley wire.
More lore which I will leave to watchers to read at their leisure if they wish. As an aside, it is worth noting, however, that the voice actor who's doing the part is doing his best based on what few records survive to imitate Lovecraft's own voice, the way that he held his voice when he read things aloud.
Following this line, I soon came upon a yellow vestibuled car numbered 1852 of a plain, double-trucked type, common from 1900 to 1910. It was untenanted, but evidently ready to start.
More trivia for those who wish to pause for it. The confusion of the dream, of course, is carried on in the visuals. Is this night or is this day? That's the moon, but it's illuminating the area by most standards as well as late or early day with a lot of fog. But such is the logic of dreams.
The trolley being on the wire and the air brake pump now and then throbbing beneath the floor. I boarded it and looked vainly about for the light switch. Noting as I did so the absence of controller handle, which implied the brief absence of the motorman. Then I sat down in one of the cross seats toward the middle, awaiting the arrival of the crew and starting of the vehicle.
Interesting that in his dream, there's some exploration, but as soon as he finds something familiar, he accepts it as his place to wait and give over activity to others.
Presently I heard a swishing in the sparse grass toward the left and saw the dark forms of two men looming up in the moonlight. They had the regulation caps of a railway company, and I could not doubt but that they were the conductor and motorman. Then one of them sniffed with singular sharpness and raised his face to howl at the moon. The other dropped on all fours to run toward the car. I leapt up and at once raced madly out of that car. Away across endless leagues of plateau till exhaustion waked me. Doing this not because the conductor had dropped on all fours, but because the face of the motorman was a mere white cone, tapering to one blood-red tentacle.
Such are the dreams of powerful dreamers. We have one more DLC, that is the Eldritch Box. Shall we? Of course we shall. Slight pause. I'm going to have a little bit more of my chamomile tea. It seems apropos somehow. Oh, hello. That's interesting. I clicked on the icon and a window appeared. Now we're getting into my horror. Yeah, okay. Audiobooks, ebooks, wallpapers. Is this an... I'm curious, is this the Eldritch Box? Is it an audiobook only? I wonder. Alright, I'm going to fiddle with this for a moment. DLC, the Eldritch Box, and it opens a window. There may not be a game for that one. It may just be a collection of audiobooks, ebooks, and wallpapers. Interesting.
Oh. So it would seem.
Enhanced and voice only.
What's enhanced?
A fine question.
Yeah, it appears to be a collection of audio files.
Yeah. So, okay, apparently, if you get the Eldritch Box DLC, you get gravity. Okay, come back here, mouse. Okay, you get some audiobooks. Oh, some ebooks.
In like 12 languages.
And some wallpapers. Very cool.
That's why the Eldritch Box doesn't have trivia, because it's not actually playable.
Yeah, it's literally just a box of some neat Eldritch stuff in association with Howard Phillips Lovecraft.
Nice.
Very cool. So, alright then. This concludes today's stream, gentle viewers and listeners. I hope that you have enjoyed. Again, I strongly recommend getting Dagon. There's a tremendous amount of content that I didn't get into for a variety of reasons, not the least of which being that it was hard for me to detect the little hidden builder signs here and there. All of the proceeds for the DLCs, as aforementioned, go to aid victims of the Russian genocide in Ukraine. And of course, the Eldritch Box DLC has all kinds of really cool looking stuff that I haven't looked into yet, but I intend to as soon as I finish here. But before we go, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our patrons, present and future. As soon as I can get confirmation that the right visual is running here. Scanning through. Okay, I can't tell if the thank yous are visual or are not. Can you see them all right? Izzy the Fool, are the thank yous visual? Are they being visualed visually? For I have special thanks to give for Cthulhu R'lyeh and to Guinevere. Excellent. And most of all, extra special thanks to my personal savior, Laughing Gremlin, who also recommended playing Dagon, by the way. This channel could not be what it is without your support. Thank you. And if you would like to support what we do, please consider becoming a subscriber at patreon.com/Coyote de la Mancha. And when you do, please let me know via Gmail or Patreon message if there's a particular color in which you would like to have your name displayed. Alternatively, you can give a one-time gift at ko-fi.com/Coyote de la Mancha. Finally, a huge thank you to all of you who have been circulating the links. The signal boost really helps the channel. So, until next time, fight genocide no matter the cause. Guard your mind against the horrors of the Elder Deep. And always encourage a sense of curiosity and the ability to create art in the young. And I will see you, gentle viewers and listeners, sometime again.